Hello. In this video, we are going to clip out each of these images and piece them together into a final product. Um, let's get to it. So in our last video, we looked at zooming, and I went over how you can zoom using your scroll function on your keyboard or on your mouse with your mouse, and your spacebar can be used to toggle to your hand tool. So we're going to move to the ball, and what you want to do in PIXLR, because of the way it works, you want to make sure that what you're clipping out is completely in the screen. So you don't want it on the edge, because unfortunately once you start clipping it, you can't then move the image. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever it is you're clipping out, in this case the ball, is completely visible on the screen and not cut off on the edge like that. So again, using your hand tool to move the image around and your zoom tool to make it smaller and larger. And also, you'll want to make sure that you have the proper layer selected. So select the ball layer. And what we're going to do now is use our lasso tool to select around the ball, and then we'll cut it out and paste it into a new layer. The lasso tool is the second tool on the left from the top of your toolbar. And you click on the lasso tool and then check out your tool options bar. The one we want to select is the magnetic option. So there's the free, the polygon, and the magnetic. And we want the magnetic in this situation. So click on that. And then what you want is to select a size. In this case, 22 looks pretty good, which I've pre-selected before. And what you're selecting is the size. It's kind of like a brush, and you're going to go around the edge of the ball. So you want a size that's going to account for the way that your finger kind of meanders on the mouse pad or on your screen or with your mouse, because you can't trace that edge exactly. Um, so what this tool is, it's magnetic. It'll kind of stick to the edge of the ball as we go around it, and that's why it's considered magnetic. So I'm going to make this a little bigger than 22, maybe like 30. And then we'll just start by clicking right on the edge of the ball. And then as you go around the ball, you want to. So in PIXLR, it can be a little frustrating because it's not quite as automated as it can be in some other programs. So you'll see here, for example, right on that where the yellow becomes the orange, I moved a little and the selection kind of went down a little and made a little point in there. If that happens and you don't like it, what you do is you double click and it closes off the selection, and then you hit Command D on your keyboard, or you just click inside the selection or outside the selection. Personally, I like clicking Command D, and it'll deselect it. Okay, bear with me with the PIXLR. It's not a program I'm super familiar with. Okay, so we're going to click on the edge and just gently go around the edge. It can be a little tedious sometimes, but if you're careful and if you get slight variations on the edge, don't worry about it too much. Um, just do the best you can to follow that edge and keep to the main line of the ball or whatever it is you're cutting out. We can always go back and tweak it a little bit later. For now, we're just going to do the best we can. Okay, so when you get back to the beginning of where you started, this little line, and some people call this a fence or the marching ants. you double click. And this is why they call it the marching ants, because it's like a little moving line that's created around the ball. And that's called a selection. So what that means is I've now got that ball selected and I can cut it out. So again, cut is Command X. And really important before you go forward is to make sure you've got the right layer selected, so the ball, because you could at this point select different layers even though it looks like the ball is selected. So make sure the ball layer is selected, and Command X, that will cut the ball out. And you can see that there's little pointy spots where the selection deviated from the edge of the ball. That's okay. And what we're going to do now is paste that ball into a new layer. So if we paste it, remember it's Command V, or you can go to Edit, Paste. Let's see what happens this time. Last time PIXLR didn't want to do it, but let's try clicking paste in the Edit menu. So Edit, Paste. Oh, and that time it worked. So notice that it pasted the ball. It's separate from this background part of the ball. And it's now two separate layers. Here's that original background part. Let's hide that. And then here's the ball itself that we just pasted. And we could hide that also, and you'll see it's separate. Now, if you want to go in and fix this edge, you can do that with the eraser tool. So the eraser tool is this right here. Shortcut is E on your keyboard. It's about on the middle, a little below the middle on the left-hand side of your toolbar. And it works just like the brush. So you can set a size and you can set a hardness. You should have, by this point, watched my video on brushes and how to use your brush. Eraser is exactly the same, except it erases. So why is that soft? Oh, I set it to soft. Okay, let's set that to hard. And you can erase these little bits that are sticking off over the edge if you feel that you need. This is a really good example of when to use your toggle with your hand. So I hold down the space bar and I can just move to another part of the edge of that ball rather than zooming out. I can just follow the edge of that ball. I'm holding down the space bar now, letting go of the space bar, and I'm back at my eraser tool. So we went over this in the last video, is toggling between tools and the hand tool while you're zoomed in. And remember, that's the space bar. And to zoom in is your scroll function. So I'm just going to delete these little edges here. And the more additional work you're willing to do, that's what I often call the tedious work, going around the edge of something and cleaning it up. The more of that kind of work you're willing to do, the cleaner your final image will look. So, at some point you have to just say it's okay, like with this little white edge on the ball, that's okay. But there are some things that are worth cleaning up. Okay, so let's try it with a hamster now. It's going to be a little bit harder because it's a more complex shape. I do want to point out that when I've looked for these photos, I found photos that were very easy to clip. Let's go back here to Google for a moment and we'll look at these hamster photos. And the hamster photo that I picked is a picture of a hamster on a white background. So that'll make it really easy to clip. And the same with the ball. So if we go back to the ball that I found, which a lot of these pictures are, but the one that I chose is a ball against a white background, which makes it really easy to clip with that tool in Pixlr. So as you look for your images to use for your final product, make sure that you're finding images that are going to be That won't be too frustrating to clip out. For example, this one here with this uh, grass texture would be a lot harder to clip out than this one against the white. Or this one here, which has variations, or this one, which is part of a photo. So clipping this ball out would be a lot harder using any of the tools in Pixlr than a ball that's, for example, just against a white background. So find photos that are going to work with you and not against you. And sometimes you could even search ball and add in white background. And you can do that with anything. If you're searching for a dragon or a car or a person, you can search for them and add in white background, and then you'll find images that have that thing against a white background, which is much easier to clip out once you get into Pixlr. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm going to zoom in here so I can see the full hamster, but it's pretty large on my screen. Go to the lasso, click on magnetic. I think 30 is a good size. It doesn't, unfortunately, doesn't show you the size until you click, and then when you click, it starts doing its thing. So if it's too small, it'll be hard to get around the edge without deviating from that edge. And remember, you can just double click and then get rid of the selection, and then start and then make the little brush a little bigger. Okay, so I'm going to carefully go around the edge, and the more carefully you do it, the less work you'll have to do later. So it's worth taking some deep breaths and taking your time. And sometimes you mess up anyway, and it's a little frustrating. But that's the way life is. So let's just keep at it here. And we're going to bring this around. And we're almost done. That was the hard part. Whew, that took a lot of concentration. And it's doing a great job. Good job, Pixlr. You're doing a great job. And we're going to bring it around. And we're back to the beginning. Remember, you get back to the beginning, double click, and it will select the area that you chose. Now, really important is I didn't click on the hamster layer when I did that, which is okay, but I have to remember to click on it before I cut it. So I'm going to click on the hamster layer. Command X is cut, and you can also go to Edit, Cut. Okay, and then you'll see that funny shape where you cut the hamster out, but we don't need that. So we'll hide that, and we'll do Command V as paste. And there's our hamster. And you can see that it does have a bit of a white edge, and that's just the way that Pixlr selects that edge. It's not perfect, but so be it. So we're going to take this thing here, this background, and delete that. Remember, just selecting the layer and pressing delete on your keyboard, or clicking this little menu here and pressing the trash button. Okay. Now, one thing that I didn't go over is the feather option. So you can select the size of your little selector brush. Your feather, it's kind of like the softness of your brush. So it'll make the edge of this selection a little softer and make it fade a little rather than being at like a really hard line. And sometimes just setting that to about 5 can give it a really a nicer edge. And you can play around with that. Maybe just try a couple different options with that and see how it comes out. Okay, and while I'm here so we'll finish with that. We don't need that anymore. And while I'm here, I'm going to also select the the ball parts that we don't need and delete that. And I'm going to rename these. This is now the ball layer. And this one is the hamster. Now the Times Square, which is the background, we don't have to clip because we're using it as a photo, the full background. Okay. Okay. Command D. There we go. Whew. All right, I'm going to zoom out a bit here, and you can see that we now have the ball, the hamster, and Times Square. Now, something that might be glaring is that Times Square is really tiny. And in our next video, we're going to look at resizing the different layers and how to do that and put this photo finally together and make it a complete image. And I will see you there in the next video.